It was the year 1180 BC. The sun hung white and merciless over the hill country of Ephraim, and under a single palm tree between Ramah and Bethel, a woman sat and listened. Not to the men standing in front of her with their grievances and their stolen goats, to something else, something higher. Her name was Deborah, and she was the only woman in the history of ancient Israel to hold 3 offices at the same time: judge, prophet, warrior. But the empire she was about to face had 900 iron chariots. She had no army, no weapons, no throne. What she had instead would end a 20-year occupation in a single afternoon. This is the story of how a bee and a tent peg shattered an empire. There is a rhythm in the book of Judges, a rhythm so exact it reads like a heartbeat that cannot break its own pattern. Israel forgets God, Israel suffers, Israel cries out, God sends a deliverer, the land rests, and then Israel forgets again. 4 cycles had already passed. 4 times the people had been broken, and 4 times the Lord had lifted them up. And now, the 5th cycle was crushing them harder than any before. Judges chapter 4 opens almost casually. The Israelites again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Almost casually, but the cost of that sentence was 20 years. The oppressor was not a small warlord. His name, according to the biblical text, was Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. And here is what few people know. Jabin was not a personal name. It was a dynastic title, like Pharaoh, like Caesar. A 17th century BC cuneiform tablet discovered at Hazor itself is addressed to Jabin, king of Hazor, over 400 years before this story. It was the name of a throne, not a man. A throne that had been grinding the north of Israel for generations. And the city behind that throne was a monster. Tel Hazor, excavated by Yigael Yadin and later by Amnon ben Tor, covered 200 acres, 10 times the size of Jerusalem at the time. 15 to 20,000 people inside its walls. It sat astride the Via Maris, the international highway that carried gold and grain and armies between Egypt and Babylon. When the Bible calls Hazor the head of all those kingdoms, it is not exaggerating. It is describing a superpower. And Hazor had a general. His name was Sisera. His base was a place called Haroshet Hagoyim, the smithy of the nations, and under his command were 900 iron chariots. Think about that for a moment. Iron, the cutting edge of ancient military technology. 1 Samuel would later say it plainly, not a single blacksmith could be found in all the land of Israel. The Canaanites had a monopoly on iron. The Israelites had a monopoly on fear. And for 20 years, no one came. Her name was Miriam. She was 11 years old. She lived in a stone house on the ridge above the Jezreel Valley, and every summer afternoon, when the wind came down from the north, she could hear the rumble. Wheels on packed earth, horses in formation, the far-off clink of bronze. Her grandmother had told her the rule the way her grandmother had been told the rule. When the rumble comes, go inside. Miriam had gone inside for as long as she could remember. She had never walked the road below her village. She did not know anyone who had. Her mother had been born into the rumble. Her father had grown old under it. The valley was not theirs. The road was not theirs. The sound of the wind when it came from the north was not a sound they loved. It was the sound of the men who owned their childhood. Have you ever lived with something broken so long that you forgot what it looked like whole? Somewhere south of Miriam's village, under a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel, a woman was listening to the same wind, and she was about to stand up. The palm tree stood on a ridge, flat stone at its base, worn smooth by the weight of a woman who had been sitting there day after day, year after year, holding a fractured nation together, one dispute at a time. 2 farmers, a stolen goat, a widow cheated out of her grain share. The small, slow work of justice in a country that had forgotten what justice sounded like. The people came to her because there was nowhere else to go. Her name was Deborah. In Hebrew, it means bee. A bee produces honey. A bee also stings. And the rabbis noticed something else. The root of her name is close to the Hebrew Deborah, which means she spoke. Her name was her function. Sweet word, sharp word, word of the Lord. The biblical text also calls her Eshet Lapidoth, the wife of Lapidoth. But Lapidoth means torches, lightning flashes. Some ancient rabbis read this not as a husband's name, but as a title. Woman of torches, woman of fire, a woman whose presence lit up the dark country around her. And she was a shofet. The English word judge does not quite catch it. A shofet was not a magistrate in a robe. The word comes from a Semitic root meaning to rule, to deliver, to set right. Every other judge in the book, Gideon, Jephthah, Samson, was primarily a warrior who blundered his way into governance. Deborah is the only one in the entire book explicitly described as judging in the way the word suggests: sitting, listening, ruling. She was also a neviah, a prophetess. She heard the voice of God and spoke it to the people. And in Judges 5, she is given a title that rises above every other: Em B'Israel, a mother in Israel. Look at the preposition. The Hebrew does not say mother of Israel. It says mother in Israel. She did not simply belong to the nation. She rose in the midst of the nation's collapse. When the fathers had hidden in caves and the elders had signed their treaties and the warriors had thrown down their swords, a mother stood up. And Judges 5 tells us what that collapse looked like. Chapter 5, verse 6. In the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned, and travelers kept to the winding paths. Miriam's road, her grandmother's road, the road she would never walk. On the morning this story turns, Deborah set down the grain dispute she was hearing. A young woman was bringing her water. Deborah took the cup and did not drink. "Something is coming," she said. The young woman looked up. "Today?" Deborah looked down the ridge path toward the north. "Before the sun is at its highest." And the wind moved the palm leaves the way wind moves when it is about to carry something far. The man from Kadesh arrived at midday. His sandals were cracked, his beard was caked with the white dust of a 3-day walk. He stopped in front of the palm tree and did not kneel. He was a soldier, and soldiers did not kneel to women. But he waited. Deborah looked up. The farmers fell silent. The young woman with the water cup stepped back. She saw him, and she knew. "Barak, son of Abinoam," she said, and her voice carried further than a voice should carry.
"The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you.
Take 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. March them to Mount Tabor. God will lure Sisera, his 900 iron chariots, and all his host to the Kishon River, and God will deliver him into your hand." The words of Judges 4, verse 7 hung in the air between them. Barak did not move. His home was Kadesh. Kadesh was walking distance from Hazor. He had seen the iron chariots his whole life. He had seen what was left of men who faced them. Farmers pulled apart behind galloping horses, villages flattened in an afternoon. He was a warrior, and warriors know the shape of a massacre before it happens. 10,000 men, on foot, against 900 iron chariots on open ground. This is not a battle plan. This is a funeral. And then he spoke.
If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go.
Some commentators have called this cowardice. Others have called it something more careful. Look at what he says, and look at what he does not say. He is not refusing. He is conditioning. He is saying that he will march his 10,000 farmers down from Mount Tabor into a chariot valley, but only if the voice of God is walking beside him, where his men can see it. There is a kind of faith that only shows up when someone we trust is standing beside us. It is real faith, but it is not yet complete. Deborah did not hesitate. I will surely go with you. But she added a sentence that Barak did not fully understand.
The road you are taking will not lead to your honor, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman.
Barak assumed she meant herself. He was wrong. And somewhere, in a tent a day's ride to the north, a woman he had never heard of was setting her work aside. And the drums began. They came from Naphtali and Zebulun, 10,000 men dressed in wool and leather, carrying staves and slings and the few bronze swords their grandfathers had passed down. Farmers, shepherds, boys who had never seen a chariot up close. They climbed Mount Tabor, a rounded mountain rising 400 meters out of the flat Jezreel Valley, its sides steep enough that no chariot could touch them. From the top, they looked down. The sound came first, the rumble that Miriam had listened for her whole childhood, the rumble that the grandfathers of these farmers had heard and had told them about. A young soldier near the front of the line, he could not have been older than 19, felt his hands begin to shake on his spear. He had heard the stories his whole life. Now the stories were below him, spread out on the plain like a moving wall of iron. 900 chariots in a black line from horizon to horizon. The Kishon River ran through the middle of the plain, a thin, almost dry scar in the summer earth. The sky was cloudless. Barak looked at Deborah. She was not looking at the chariots. She was looking at the sky. Not yet. Not yet. Now! Up! She cried.
For this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone out before you?
Barak raised his sword. 10,000 men began to run, down Mount Tabor, toward the chariots. And the sky cracked. Judges 5 describes what happened in poetry older than almost anything else in the Hebrew Bible. The stars from their courses fought against Sisera. A storm broke over the mountains, the kind of storm the Jezreel Valley sees maybe once in a generation. Torrents of water poured off the slopes of Carmel and Tabor. The Kishon River, dry 1 hour, rose the next. The torrent Kishon swept them away, the ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon. The iron that had made the chariots terrifying became the thing that destroyed them. Wheels sank into mud that had been hard ground 30 minutes earlier. Horses screamed. Drivers cut the traces and tried to run. The smell of wet iron and panicked horses rose from the plain. 10,000 Israelite farmers, unburdened by armor, swept down off the mountain into the mud and finished what the sky had started. Not one chariot returned to Harosheth. But one man did not wait for the end. Sisera, the terror of the northern tribes for 20 years, abandoned his chariot, abandoned his men, and ran. On foot, alone. And in a stone house on a ridge above the valley, an 11-year-old girl stood in her doorway and listened. The rumble had stopped. The wind still came from the north, but the rumble had stopped. She did not know what to do with a sound that was not there. The tents of the Kenites were pitched at Zaananim, near the Great Oak, a long day's journey northeast of the battlefield. The Kenites were not Canaanites. They were not quite Israelites either. They were nomads, descendants of Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, cousins by marriage to the tribes of Israel, and master blacksmiths. The very word Kenite comes from a Semitic root meaning smith. They wandered the edges of the northern kingdoms, selling their metallurgical skill to whoever paid. And Heber the Kenite had made a choice. Judges 4 verse 11 tells us he had separated from the main body of his tribe and moved north. And verse 17 tells us something else. There was peace between Jabin, king of Hatzor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. A formal peace, an alliance. Some scholars have suggested that Heber's clan may have been the ones servicing Sisera's iron chariots. Whatever the arrangement, one thing was certain. In that whole region, a Kenite tent was the one place a Canaanite general could count on as safe. Sisera knew this. He ran for 15 miles, maybe 20. His lungs burned, his legs cramped. His mouth was a dry thing that had forgotten the shape of words. And as he ran, he repeated the same 3 words to himself, over and over, like a prayer to something that was not God. The Kenites. Heber. The treaty. The Kenites. Heber. The treaty. When he finally saw the dark goat-hair tents of Heber's encampment at Zaananim, he must have felt the first moment of safety since the sky had cracked open. He headed for a tent at the edge of the camp, a woman's tent, separate from the men's quarters by ancient Bedouin custom. In the patriarchal world of the ancient Near East, entering a woman's private space provided an added wall of protection. No pursuer would dare violate it without cause. The woman who lived in that tent was named Jael. She was standing outside it when he came stumbling across the camp. She saw him before he saw her. She saw the mud on his robe. She saw the way he staggered. She saw a man who should have been in a chariot and was not. And she saw, without being told, what had happened in the valley. My husband has a treaty with his king. My whole tribe survives by standing in the middle. If I let this man in, I am choosing a side. If I turn him away, I am still choosing a side. There is no middle left to stand in. There was never any middle. She did not wait for him to reach the flap. She stepped toward him. She walked the last 10 paces between them with the unhurried stride of a woman who had already decided. And she spoke first.
Turn aside, my lord. Turn aside to me. Do not be afraid.
And Sisera, the general of 900 chariots, the shadow under which the north of Israel had lived for 20 years, obeyed a nomad woman's voice. He did not hear what she was actually saying. A woman was telling a mighty warrior not to be afraid. The power in the exchange had already flipped. He stepped inside. She covered him with a rug. Now pull the camera back. A day's ride to the west, at Harosheth Hagoyim, a woman stood at a lattice window, looking out over the road that led down into the Jezreel Valley. She was Sisera's mother. Judges 5 pauses the battle and lingers on this scene, one of the strangest and quietly most devastating passages in all the Hebrew Bible. Her son was late. His chariot should have returned by now. She cried through the lattice, the poem tells us. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why do the hoofbeats of his chariots delay? Her noble ladies gathered around her. They answered her with the soothing logic of empire. Are they not finding and dividing the spoil? A womb, 2 wombs for every man. Plunder of dyed garments for Sisera, plunder of dyed garments embroidered. 2 pieces of dyed embroidery for the neck of the plunderer. Read those lines slowly. This is how the wives of the Canaanite nobility pictured a successful campaign. Not glory, not honor. A girl or 2 for every soldier. Captured women stripped and divided like cattle. dyed garments ripped from the shoulders of Israelite villagers and draped around the neck of a general's mother. The light through the lattice was beginning to turn. The afternoon was long, the ladies kept talking, the road kept being empty. Her son was 1,000 miles away inside that empty road, and she did not know it. The ladies were still explaining the delay. One of them reached for her hand. The light through the lattice fell across the rug at her feet and inched toward the wall, the way afternoon light inches toward evening when no one is watching the sun. She was still waiting. Inside Jael's tent, the light was dim. The air smelled of goat hair and leather, and the fermented milk hung from the tent pole in his skin. Sisera's breathing had begun to slow. He had asked for water. She gave him milk. Judges 5, verse 25. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. She brought him curds in a magnificent bowl. Now feel the weight of that sentence. In the hospitality code of the ancient Near East, milk served in a noble bowl was not a casual offering. It was a gesture of honor, a signal that the guest was beloved, protected, bound to the host by the sacred laws of the tent. Sisera drank. His body, dehydrated, exhausted, primed to absorb anything given, drank deep. But what Jael served him was not simple milk. It was chemah, warm, fermented goat's curd. Laban, as it is still called in the region today, high in lactose-derived sugars, rich in tryptophan, the amino acid that the human body converts into serotonin and then into melatonin. To a man whose body was crashing from the adrenaline of a 20-mile flight, warm Laban is not a meal. It is a sedative. Later Jewish tradition would note it plainly. Warm milk induces heavy sleep. Jael knew. Within minutes, the mighty Sisera, commander of 900 iron chariots, terror of the Jezreel Valley, enforcer of a 20-year occupation, was asleep beneath a woman's rug. Defenseless. Jael sat beside him for a long moment. She did not move. She listened to the sound of his breathing. Outside the tent, the goats shifted in their pen. A child laughed somewhere across the camp. The world was still going on. There are moments in a life when the hand that is holding the ordinary tool is the only hand in the world that can do the thing that must be done. And the person holding that tool almost never knows it in advance. Her hands knew the tent. Every Bedouin woman of her day was responsible for raising the family tents, pounding the heavy wooden pegs into hard summer ground, lashing the ropes, breaking it all down and moving with the herds. Her forearms had done this work 1,000 times. A tent peg in her right hand was not a weapon. It was a tool, an extension of her body. She reached for it. She reached for the workman's mallet beside it. She walked softly across the rug-covered floor of her own tent. She knelt beside him. She placed the point of the peg against his temple, her left hand steady on the wood, her right hand on the mallet. And for 1 second, not more, she did not move. If I do not do this, no one in this tent will. If I do not do this, no one in Israel will. God sees this tent. The mallet came down. The poem tells us what happened in the slow, unbearable rhythm of Hebrew parallelism. Her hand she put to the tent peg, her right hand to the workman's mallet. She struck Sisera. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. Between her feet, he sank. He fell. He lay still. Where he sank, there he fell, dead. He sank. He fell. He lay still. She set the mallet down. Her hands were shaking. The tent was quiet. The goats were quiet. The child across the camp had stopped laughing. She sat back on her heels, her palms open on her knees, and for a long moment, she did not do anything at all. She just breathed. And then, outside the tent, the sound of running feet. Barak, sword drawn, chest heaving, looking for his enemy. Jael stepped out of her tent. She did not speak. She did not need to. She lifted her hand and gestured once toward the flap. Barak looked at her. He looked at the tent. He stepped past her and inside. And the prophecy Deborah had spoken to him under the palm tree, the one he had only half understood, came back to him in the dim goat hair light. The Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Not Deborah, not the prophetess. This woman, this nomad, this stranger he had never heard of until the moment he saw what she had done. He looked down at the peg. He looked down at his sword. The sword had not been used on his enemy. It had not needed to be. Barak lowered his head. He did not weep. He did not speak. He simply stood in the tent of a Kenite woman and understood for the first time what the prophetess had meant. The land had rest for 40 years. 40 years, a full generation. Boys who were born the week Sisera died grew up walking the open highways their grandfathers had abandoned. They took the roads their mothers had feared. They would only know the name Sisera as a word their parents whispered, a shadow that had lifted before they were old enough to remember. And on a ridge above the Jezreel Valley, a woman named Miriam, no longer 11, now grown, now a mother herself, stood in her doorway on a summer afternoon and did not listen for the rumble. There was no rumble to listen for. Her daughter ran past her down the slope toward the road below. The road. The open road. The road her own grandmother had described to her in whispers, and that her daughter now took at a run. Miriam watched her go. The wind still came from the north. The wind came now, without fear. Judges 5 ends with a line that the women of Israel sang for centuries. So perish all your enemies, O Lord. But may those who love you rise like the sun when it rises in its strength. And here is the pattern. Look at what God did not do. He did not send a stronger army. He sent a woman under a palm tree. He did not send better chariots. He sent a storm. He did not send a conquering king. He sent a tent dweller with a hammer. 3,000 years later, the pattern has not changed. A shepherd boy with a sling. 300 men with torches and clay jars. A young woman in Nazareth who said yes to an angel. A carpenter on a Roman cross. God routinely bypasses the places where the world stores its power, and he reaches instead for the palm tree, the tent, the manger, the cross. The place where you are sitting right now is not small. The tent you sleep in, the palm tree you sit under, the tools in your hands, these are not small. They are the exact place from which God intends to undo something the world has told you cannot be undone. What is the iron chariot in your life? What is the thing that has rumbled across the valley of your days for so long that you no longer remember what the road looked like before it came? What is the enemy you have accepted as permanent? Deborah sat under a palm tree for 20 years before she stood up. Jael raised and lowered tents for most of her adult life before she raised the one mallet that mattered. Neither of them went looking for the moment that defined them. The moment came to them, in the heat of a midday summons, in the stumble of a fleeing general across a camp. And when it came, they were ready. Be ready. If this story stirred something in you, let it do its work. Leave a comment and tell me, do you see yourself more as Deborah under the palm, as Barak needing a witness beside him, or as Jael with the tools of her trade in her hands? Which one is closest to where God has placed you today? I read the comments, and this is the conversation I want to have with you. If these stories matter to you, subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. The Song of Deborah was carried for 3,000 years because the women of Israel refused to let it die. Carry this one forward the same way. Because a woman sat under a palm tree, and a woman answered a stranger at her tent, and an 11-year-old girl in a stone house above the valley woke up one morning to a wind that was finally quiet. The stars fought from their courses, the Kishon swept the chariots away, and between the feet of a Kenite housewife, the general of 900 iron chariots sank and fell and lay still, and the prophecy was fulfilled, and the land had rest. And a woman's name became a song.